Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Finding Your Location's Best Marketing Blend. My name is Petra Radek, and I'm the marketing manager here at RO Writer. I'm excited to introduce today's presenter, Jeff Tremper, who will be walking us through top marketing strategies for auto repair shops. Jeff Tremper has been a marketing influencer in aftermarket oil change industry for over 20 years. He has worked with some of the largest brands to create intelligent, thoughtful, multi-channel customer engagements. The Throttle CRM Reminder Program is a product of Matrix Imaging Solutions and has stood the test of time and continues to evolve to meet today's marketing challenges. His approach to customer retention is based on data-driven, customer-specific communication. Jeff is the SVP at Matrix Imaging Solutions. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Petra. I do appreciate it. It's a great opportunity, and I'm honored to have this opportunity to speak to you and also to your customers, to our writer, shop owners and managers. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I have two kids. I'm family oriented. Throttle is a family owned and operated organization. We have 15 years in this particular aftermarket lube industry. 15 years of experience marketing and understanding and continuing to evolve, as you mentioned, as time goes by. We've seen a lot of changes over the years as it relates to marketing in this industry. There's been a lot of evolution, and then there's also been a lot of things that have kind of stood the test of time. So it's an interesting industry to be in for sure. It presents its own unique challenges as it relates to marketing, data capture, and so on. And we can get into that as we get into the presentation. I have had the honor of working with multiple national accounts, in addition to hundreds of single and multi-shop operations and owners. We have built our program based on feedback from our customers. It's one thing that we're very proud of. You know, it's important to us to identify what's going to actually make a difference at the ground level, as opposed to just presenting something from a sales perspective that sounds great, but ultimately does not increase car counts or ticket averages or improve upon, you know, making sure that that brand is top of mind when it comes to that customer coming in for service. So we have listened, we've developed together with our partners. We get better every year with involvement from those partners. There's nothing that makes me happier than working with someone who understands the bigger picture and is willing to talk and work with us on how we can improve upon what we do. I think it's important to talk about marketing and to set the expectation out of the gate. You know, it's a long-term commitment when you jump into marketing in this industry. You have to be willing to fail. You know, you have to be willing to understand that there's no silver bullet. I always recommend a 2-year commitment at minimum when you get into marketing. You want to make sure that you're partnering with a company that is going to have a game plan, have a clear outline as to what that game plan includes and involves. It's important to stick with the game plan. It's important also not to react when the game plan is not going through as you had hoped. You know, you have to make sure that you stay the course. With that, you also have to be open to changing your strategies based on the metrics that you're seeing coming back from that particular marketing partner. And you have to give that data time to mature so that way you're making sure that you're making adjustments based on facts as opposed to feelings. You have to set realistic expectations. So marketing is not going to create a miracle, as we said earlier. You know, the idea behind marketing is to make sure that we're keeping your brand top of mind. You have to look for incremental growth over time. That's the game plan. That's the goal. And marketing should really help to stabilize your bottom line. Ultimately, we want to make sure that we are intelligently touching customers when they're due for their services and or throughout their service experience, their customer journey, and we can get more into that later on in the presentation. There's a lot of marketing options out there in the world today. There's a lot of communication channels. It's hard to know which communication channels are going to actually make a difference. And so ultimately, we want to create a multi-channel experience, a multi-channel approach to marketing. So we can talk about what that looks like here shortly as well. just to identify some of the topics that we are going to cover on the call today. We're going to talk about customer experience. We're going to talk about your marketing budget, setting a realistic marketing budget, committing to it. We're going to talk about the customer journey as it relates to how we're marketing throughout each phase of that customer's experience with your shop. And then we're going to talk about how our writer has teamed up with Throttle and how we integrate and how we work together to make sure that we're putting our best foot forward to represent your brand and drive more business to your bottom line. Ultimately, we'll get the takeaways. Before we can get into marketing, it's important to talk about the customer experience. Ultimately, what we are marketing is the customer experience. So the customer experience is what's going to create the loyalty to your particular shop or brand. The customer experience is made up of three different factors. There is your shop, your employees, and your service experience. And so when we talk about your shop, we want to talk about first impressions. Sometimes it's hard to have an objective viewpoint when it comes to first impressions or the impression that your shop is making in general, because you're there every day. But it's important to understand what it looks like from the outside. Is it appealing? Is it inviting? Is it professional? What does it look like from the inside? Is it clean? Are the bathrooms clean? Is it organized? Did you take the time to put plants out? Do you have a nice waiting room? Do you happen to provide TVs while they wait? Do you have any popcorns or popcorn or snacks or water bottles? Anything that might help to make that experience unique. Amenities are also a good thing to consider. Giving them Wi-Fi connectivity, giving them a children's play area. Anything you can do to help differentiate yourself as it relates to the shop and the experience within the shop is going to make a difference, and is also going to come to mind when that customer receives that marketing piece. So that's important. Second item on the customer experience is your employees. They say in this industry that employees can only really remember three things, and so it's important to make sure that you're really thinking about what those three things are. Now, that's a blanket statement. Of course, there are amazing employees out there. There's a lot of folks who have been in this industry for a long time and understand the complexities of what it means to be able to communicate and work with a customer, to meet them at the door based on what they're bringing to the table for that day. Building a relationship with that customer. If there are three things that your employees are going to focus on, what I recommend is one, attitude. Making sure that they're kind and considerate, making sure that they're patient. Again, meeting that customer at the door based on where that customer is for that day. Number two is going to be accurate data capture. We'll talk about how important data capture is here shortly. Number three is going to be the pride in the service that they're providing. Making sure that they're doing, that they're providing and working to their best end. Making sure that they're taking care of the customer and doing what it is that they promise up front. Because if the job is not done correctly, then that's gonna show up after the customer leaves, and that's just going to create a bad taste. And so that service experience again is important. Service experience happens to be the third aspect of the big three. So the shop, your employees, and then the service experience. It's important to identify how your process is unique. Do you have check-in outside or inside? Do you allow the customer to stay in their vehicle? Is there a tablet to check in with the customer? Are there service call-outs during the service experience? Are you educating the customer as opposed to upselling the customer? Ultimately, are you building trust? And so the customer experience, if you go out and explore your competition and you take the time to service your vehicle in their shops and try and get a feel for what are their strengths and what are their weaknesses. What is it that stands out as a positive? What are the things that stand out as a negative? You have to be able to bring that back to your own shop and take all of that into consideration as it relates to your own team and your own customer experience. Because ultimately, when the customer sees your brand on the pieces that we're sending out, they're going to remember that experience. It needs to be consistent, that consistent, top quality, trustworthy customer experience. So having said that, it's important to recognize that no amount of marketing is going to fix that customer experience, and that is the beginning and the end of everything, everything related to the success of your marketing game plan. So let's not put the cart before the horse. You have to make sure that your team is prepared and that you're taking accountability for your own shop and that experience. Next, we want to talk about marketing budget. So when it comes to marketing in this industry, our recommendation is to dedicate 7 to 8% of your gross annual revenue towards marketing. With that, you want to establish a solid game plan. That game plan has to handle the gamut of your customer experience, from new customers to existing to lost. And we can get into that more later. You want to be able to track the return on your investment. You want to be able to have solid KPIs to make sure that what you're putting in is bringing something back out. 7 to 8% may sound like a lot. And if you haven't done marketing before, it may feel like a lot. And that's okay. If that's not a number that you're comfortable with, then choose your number. Maybe it's 4 to 5%. But whatever it is, make sure that you are dedicated to continuing to put that budget towards marketing year over year. Just to give you a feel for what the sample budget might look like, if the shop is making around $700K annually, then the marketing budget is going to be between $49 and $56K. The monthly marketing budget then is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 4.6. So this is the 7 to 8% model, and that's what those numbers shake out to be based on the $700K annual gross revenue. That should give you plenty of marketing capital to approach the marketing game plan on multiple platforms. And so we'll get into that here shortly. Next up, customer journey. First thing that comes to mind when it relates to the customer journey, this has to do with how we're touching the customer, when we're touching the customer, and what we're including in those communication touch points with each customer as they move beyond their service experience. So how do we engage on the customer journey? We want to treat all communication engagements as an ongoing conversation with the customer. We want to use data to personalize the communications that we're sending out. We want to make the message relevant to the stage in that customer's journey. So, if they've just had a service, then we don't want to invite them back for another service. If they've missed the last 3 services, then we might want to approach how we communicate with that customer to recognize that they have missed those services. Another thing to consider as you're engaging your customers along the customer journey is the timing of the communications. You want to make sure that you include vehicle-specific information related to where that customer is, and also related to that specific customer's vehicle. Next thing we talk about is data capture. Accurate data is our #1 priority when it comes to marketing. It allows for us, it gives us the tools we need to be able to communicate. It gives us the tools we need to reach out when we need to reach out. Some of the things that may seem very basic, but you'd be surprised sometimes when we get into the database and we start looking at what the data is available and what we can leverage in our marketing strategy. Oftentimes some of the basics are missing. And so I think it's important to point that out. You want to make sure you're getting the first and last name. You want to make sure you're getting their physical mailing address, their phone number, their email address, the license plate of their vehicle, their year, make, and model, and then also their current mileage. If there's nothing else that you get outside of these key data metrics, then please make sure that you get these, and make sure that you're talking to your guys consistently about how important it is to get this every day on every customer. You might talk about how you can make data capture a little more fun. You want to maybe create incentives so that way they know that in the event that they can get accurate data, there might be rewards for them. You might set up a free lunch based on being able to identify accurate metrics from a data standpoint. If you have multiple shops, you might set up competitions between the shops. Without accurate data, we can't segment your database in order to communicate specifically to different demographics, for example. Without accurate data, we can't strive to make customers lifetime customers. It reduces our ability to react when times are slow. And it also reduces our ability to leverage multiple communication channels. And so data is very important. It should be one of your top priorities. Next up is operation codes. Having been in this industry now for the last 15 years, we understand the importance of operation codes, and we also understand that they are oftentimes not thought of as important along the marketing journey. What it does is it gives us the ability to market to specific segments, to identify the types of oil that a customer had the last time they were in. It allows us to identify whether they have military affiliations, for example, or whether they're part of a fleet account, or whether they're with rideshare. It allows us to identify declined services, as long as that data is being captured accurately upon check-in or check-out, then that data can be passed on, and then we can use that data to build unique customer experiences through the marketing channels that we provide. It also allows for you to follow with on ancillary services, for example, identifying customers that have come in for a state inspection but never had an oil change, for example. Well, if we have a way of identifying that through the opcodes, then we can actually make sure that we have a unique follow-up to that particular type of customer. We can invite them back for an oil change. Oftentimes with inspections, customers come in for inspections only. Well, we can try and mitigate that if we have good operation code usage. Another example is tire check, identifying that tires were on their way towards being worn. If tires is something that your shop can provide, then operation codes and accurate operation codes will help us to make that distinction. I think it makes sense to go in and review all of your available services, to clean up old services, to make sure that your staff is selecting the correct opcodes as it relates to these services. Oftentimes the opcodes are tied in on the back end, so it may just be the correct service selection that then creates the opcode that we need in order to make our communication effective as possible. So operation codes, it's not something you think of often when it comes to marketing, but it can really help to make a difference. We're almost to talking about strategies as it relates to marketing. But before we do that, I think it's important to identify coupons. It's a coupon-driven industry. Oftentimes, coupons are what drive that customer back. Customers are often looking for the best coupon that's available out there. So it's important to make sure that we are providing coupons, that we are including a coupon ID or coupon code, so that way we can try and track redemptions within the shop. But what's important to understand in this industry is that coupons are generally not tracked very accurately. There's oftentimes too many coupon codes for your employees to choose from. So just as we simplify the operation codes, I think it makes sense to go in, and this would be one of the things that we recommend, is to reduce the overall coupons that are available within the POS, right? We want to make sure that the customer is not, or I'm sorry, your employee is not just choosing the first $10 offer that shows up, but instead is accurately selecting the $10 offer, for example, that we've marketed, because that helps us to understand where that customer is in that customer journey. We may not choose to offer $10 until they get to the point where they've missed their last two services. And as long as we can get that accurate coupon code ingested within the system, then our writer can pass us that overnight, and that'll help us to track those KPIs that we talked about and that are so important to understanding the accuracy and the effectiveness of the marketing program. So deleting old coupons, understanding when a manager special is going to come into play, making sure that we don't that your guys don't use manager special on any and all customers that come in. I would always recommend that you accept your competition's coupons. I think it's an opportunity to give that customer an experience, let them know that it's not something that you do often or every day, but that you'd be willing to do that on this particular instance so that you can give them the opportunity to experience your shop and your particular service. It's also a good way to have an opportunity to build that trust, right? So it's important to have an ongoing dialogue with your employees about coupons. It's important to clean them up. It's also important to, again, have realistic expectations. Coupon redemptions are not very strong. I should say that tracking coupon redemptions is not something that this industry does a good job of. It's an ongoing battle. It's a collision between marketing and operations. So I think that that's, as much as we want to drive accountability and as much as we want to try and make the accurate selections, it's also important to partner with a marketing partner that can identify redemptions outside of coupons. Throttle identifies license plates and also customer IDs that are associated uniquely with the RO Rider system. And so we can identify whether a customer comes back within a certain amount of time, regardless of whether the coupon was ingested accurately. Accurate coupon ingestion is great, and it helps us to cross-reference within those KPIs, but it's important to, again, set expectations as it relates to coupons. Now we get into the customer journey. We can talk about the marketing channels, new customers, existing customers, and lost customers. So that's the spectrum. We want to come up with strategies that identify how we can go after each one of these segments within the marketing game plan. So starting out with new customers are coming to your shop every day. That's very important to understand. In this industry, we generally see about a 40 to 45% new customer ratio on a month in, month out basis. And that just lends itself to how transient this particular industry is. Customers will stop in out of convenience. Customers will stop in based on a unique offer that they happen to have received, an opportunity. Customers also will, they will stop in based on any number of factors that may or may not have something to do with what we've sent out from a marketing standpoint. And so, again, that's why that customer experience is so important, because every day that consistency and that trust that you're building is going to allow us to follow up with that customer from a retention standpoint. We'll get to that here in a moment. With new customers, you want to set realistic expectations. They are generally not due for service when we're sending something out to them to try and invite them in. It's important to expect inconsistent results as it relates to your new customer acquisition efforts. Because we don't know where they are in their customer journey and their vehicle's life cycle. Either it's going to land and it's going to make sense, or it's not. So generally with new customer acquisitions, you can feel good about a 2 to 3% return, which feels like a very low number, but that's the expectation I think you need to set as it relates to new customers. You are trying to get your brand out into your community. And we're trying to make sure that that's consistently happening to customers who haven't come in before. So one thing that's also important is when that new customer comes in, that you're working on building trust as opposed to trying to upsell upon their first visit. So the sooner you can identify someone as a new customer, the better. And there should be protocols in place as it relates to operations and how you want to treat that new customer. Last bullet point is creating a differentiator for the new customer. So the idea there is making sure that that service experience is unique, making sure that that new customer feels special. It's going to make a big difference when we reach back out again. Some of the strategies that you might employ as it relates to new customers, sending direct mail is still relevant. The mailbox seems to be reducing in the amount of mail that is being sent out. And so while there's a lot of static on the digital side of the marketing spectrum, direct mail is a great way to make that impression. It's something that they're holding on to. It's something that is physical, that kind of ends up in the home where they see it multiple times. So direct mail sending to customers that are not part of your existing database, customers who match, or I'm sorry, prospects who match your customer demographics. That's a good strategy. Targeting specific zip codes and or carrier routes around your location is a good strategy. Identifying whenever you have new management or whenever you have a grand opening on a new location, those are good reasons to send out and reach out to new customers. New movers, always a good idea. Next option is guerrilla marketing cards. So putting together cards that can be handed out at the grocery store, at sporting events, at local festivities, anything having to do with the community is going to make a big difference in terms of just trying to continue to get your brand out there, let people know about the fact that you're there. When it comes to social media and new customers, there are certainly some options out there. There's the social media realm of marketing is a very complex organism for sure. And we could really spend an entire session just kind of talking about what the options are related to that. But some of the things to take away, Google 5-star review is going to be very important. Keeping an eye on that, understanding where you rank, making sure that you're reading any reviews that show up online and that you're reacting to them, and you're doing so in a way of integrity, in a way of positive, reinforcement that you're accepting responsibility on something that may have been a mistake that you wish hadn't happened, but if it did happen, then it makes sense to make sure that's vocalized, right? That you're taking responsibility. You want to make sure that you have your shop identified within Google Map placement. Some of the things to consider as well are the idea of going local with Facebook or Instagram, creating an account, having someone on staff who might be tech savvy, who might be that positive voice, that optimistic personality, who can connect with your customers on a week in and week out basis. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but I would say twice a week is a good place to start. You want to create a voice that is positive. You want to create content that is not always shop specific. Perhaps you talk about pets or the weather. Perhaps you talk about services, holidays that happen to be going on, your employees, just kind of having that consistent dialogue. What's important though is if you're going to engage within a social media platform from a local standpoint, then you need to make sure that you are consistently responding and that you're consistently engaged. Otherwise, it really doesn't make sense. It penalizes you from a social media standpoint to have a presence but not be actively involved. So that gives us some ideas on new customer acquisition. Then we get to the point where customers have had the experience and now we're trying to bring them back. This is something that we really specialize in as it relates to customer retention. Throttle has built a number of touch points that follow that customer after their experience, keep the brand top of mind, and do our best to identify specific driving habits and servicing history related to each of your customers. So some of the data that we can leverage for existing customers, customer information, vehicle information, mileage between visits, driving habits, buying habits, coupon usage, top spenders, most loyal customers. These are all things that can be considered. New customer versus existing customer. Had they had the experience before? If it's only their first time, then we might want to tailor our marketing efforts in a unique way. This is really an investment in your customer's lifetime value. Again, keeping brand top of mind so that when they are due or when they have someone else in the family who's due, they think of your shop as opposed to the competition. Gives us the opportunity to remind customers about upcoming services. Our goal is to speed up that oil change interval to make sure that we're getting out to customers when they're actually due, as opposed to some arbitrary time frame. And we do that based on their actual driving habits and servicing history. You want to be able to, another bullet point that we have here is educating your customer. So giving them the opportunity to understand why it's important to get a service performed upon their next visit. recognizing manufacturer recommendations and providing educational videos is something that Throttle specializes in. We also specialize in using an omni-channel approach. So postcards to emails to text notifications, just to name a few. Talking about existing customer strategies, I just mentioned new versus existing customers, being able to recognize each customer as it relates to their previous experience in your shop. Thank you, follow-up emails, follow-up surveys, always important to get a feel for how the customer felt about their experience. Declined services, being able to recognize what was offered and what was declined, and then being able to follow up and give them the opportunity to educate themselves on those services, and then tracking their return back to the shop. Monthly service update newsletters, intelligent service reminders, reactivation campaigns, strategic social media engagements, holiday campaigns, state inspection reminders, just to name a few. And we'll get into the Throttle customer journey here closer to the end of the presentation. Next up is lost customers. What's nice about lost customers is that they've already had the experience with your brand. So, they've come in, we have their information. We can use that information to try and bring them back to the shop. It's easy for us to track their return on investment, the rate of return as well. It's easier to upsell an existing customer than it is a new customer. And so obviously customers who have had more experience with your shop are going to feel more comfortable with the shop and are going to be more open to the other services that you can provide, right? We can also use this to identify the highest paying customers out of the lost customers and make sure that we highlight those customers. So just some ideas on how to approach lost customers. Committing to a consistent approach is important. Making sure that you are reaching out to your lost customers at least once a quarter is what we recommend. Targeting customers who have not been in for 12 to 24 months is a good place to start. Using direct mail, again, with personalization, using social media engagement, giving you the ability to make phone calls for these customers who are past due, as a check-in, an opportunity to book an appointment, to just kind of see how they're doing and find out what what they think of the shop. It's a great thing to do if you have employees who are good with communication. You should really try and utilize that on a one-to-one basis. Also, with lost customers, it makes sense to ratchet up the offers. If it's our last opportunity to try and get in front of them, then let's give them our most aggressive offer that you're comfortable with. Now we talk about marketing metrics. This is a really key aspect to your marketing partner. They have to be able to provide metrics as it relates to valid mailing addresses, daily email capture rates, valid email addresses, the rate of return on the pieces that are being sent out, both from that's across the board on all of your marketing channels. Being able to identify accurate return on investment for each of those channels, identifying email open rates, ticket averages, car counts per day, intervals between visits, and ultimately web traffic. Being able to identify what's happening on your website in the event that you do have one, how many customers are visiting the site, how long do they stay there, what do they click on, is it driving additional appointments. So those are some of the key metrics that are important to keep top of mind and to also share with your employees. It makes sense to let them know how they're doing with email capture or with valid mailing address capture and so on. Now we get to talk about how RO Writer and Throttle have teamed up, how Throttle can support you through the RO Writer backend data channel. Throttle's integrated directly with RO Writer. We have a secure backend connection. The initial data dump that we receive is 24 months in the event that you have that 24-month data available. That allows us to look into the past and identify customers' driving habits and servicing history before we turn the program on. In the event that you don't have 24 months, that's okay. We can work with you there as well. Nothing is going to happen from a data standpoint unless you give your approval, by the way. So the Throttle is never going to sell or share your data with anybody. It is used primarily to market to your customers. And so once we get that 24-month historical data feed, we then get a daily transactional feed moving forward. That allows us to see which customers have come in and how long it took them to respond, whether or not they brought in coupons, or whether a postcard or an email or a text notification drove them back in. So this is all good information, all related to the secure connection that's happening between Throttle and our writer. Throttle we pride ourselves on intelligently timed communications. And so what that means is being able to identify new customers and understanding when it makes sense to reach out to a new customer after their service visit versus existing customers. Customers that have been in multiple times. We generally break the interval up into two segments, a 3,000 mile and a 5,000 mile. And so that just means that the closer you are to coming back in for service based on either one of those intervals is when our timing is going to come into play as it relates to our communication touch points. We check for CAS certification, we check for bad addresses, and we check for national change of address every single week as we pull our reminders. And so what we're doing there is we are doing our best to identify and catch bad data upstream so that we're not using up valuable marketing dollars on customers that are never going to receive the pieces that we're sending out. We also provide a bad address report, which gives you the ability to understand what we're seeing, and also gives you the ability to talk to your guys at the shop to improve upon that data capture. We have vehicle-specific services included. Manufacturer recommendations is something that we spoke about a little bit earlier. So identifying unique year, make, model, projected mileage, what the manufacturer recommends for that particular vehicle at that time, and then cross-referencing that with what the shop can perform. We have educational videos tied in with those manufacturer recommendations on our digital communication standpoint or touch points. So again, utilizing as much intelligence as we can about the customer and their vehicle to give them timely notifications. Other retention opportunities, we have strong capabilities on the fleet reminder side, identifying fleet services, fleet accounts, giving unique offers for specific fleets, turning fleets off if you like. That's all available, things that we can talk about. State inspection reminders, also follow-ups on folks who come in for just a state inspection and have never had an oil change. So these are all things that are incorporated in the Throttle program. When we look at the Throttle customer journey, we have a thank you email that goes out the day after service that's tied to a survey. If you have a third-party survey system that you're using, we can certainly tie into that as well. Keep in mind that this is part of the bundle program. All of these touch points are included. We can mix and match. We can turn certain things on or off if you like, but we have the capability to do a thank you email, a survey, and then push happy customers towards your social media sites. We have declined service email capabilities. So identifying services that were declined, sending out a follow-up email at 1 week, 1 month, 3 months, and 6 months, paying attention to whether that customer opens the emails, watches the videos, and comes back in for service, giving you the ability to identify what coupons those customers used when they came back in for service, and ultimately whether or not they have responded to those declined suggested services. Once a month, we'll send a service update newsletter to every customer in your database that has a valid email address. Helps to keep the brand top of mind, provides manufacturer recommendations coming due, previous services performed, 2 light automotive articles, a recipe of the month. Then we get to the point where they're due for their actual service. We have text notifications, emails, and postcards available. With that, our average response rate is around 20% for touch 1. If they don't respond to touch 1, then we're going to touch them 30 days later. We're going to again send a text, email, and postcard reminder. We watch to see whether that customer comes in for 45 days after we send. And in the event that they do not, then we follow up with the 10,000 mile touch point. The bonus reminder touch point 4 is not, it is just that. It's a bonus opportunity to reach out to customers who are at 15,000 miles after their last service visit. That goes beyond a year. It's a great rolling reactivation campaign, essentially. If If the customer doesn't respond to any of these touch points, then we're going to hit them again at 12, 18, and 24 months with the reactivation email. In addition to all of this, you also have 6 holiday email campaigns that go out to your entire database. We would set that up ahead of time, and that would be automatically triggered when the time is right. So you don't have to worry about it. As a matter of fact, all of this within the customer journey are not things that you have to do anything from a management or owner perspective. We get things lined up, we turn the program on. In general, it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to get your data, get your coupons, get your layout in place. After that happens, it's a turnkey solution. So all of this happens in the background. All of your customers are touched on time every time. And we can also accurately track return for each of these reminder touch points and these communication channels. And so that allows us to tell you how many pieces went out, how many emails went out, how many were opened, how many new customers responded, how many existing customers responded, how many tickets that created, and then what the gross overall revenue looks like. So these are all important key metrics and things that we can help you understand if you're interested in learning more about the Throttle program. Now we get into takeaways. Again, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for spending the last 40 minutes with me here. I hope you learned something, and I hope that you find value in how Throttle is integrated with our writer and the opportunity that's there to increase that bottom line and to incrementally raise car counts and ticket averages over time with a strong commitment to marketing. Takeaways: superior customer experience is essential to retaining your customers. It's important that you build trust with your customers. That is what's going to make a marketing program work or not work. Ultimately, we can't change that customer experience, only you can. You want to make sure that your employees are focusing on accurate data capture. You want to delete inactive coupons. You want to make sure that you're keeping track of what coupons are in the system. You don't want to have a whole lot of ancillary coupons that are no longer in use. You want to simplify your operation codes or your services in general. You want to make sure that your employees understand what are the correct services to select. And we can work with you to help you understand operation codes that you might put in place that you're not thinking about now. It's important to commit to a marketing budget, to create a marketing customer journey strategy for new customers, existing customers, and lost customers, to track your marketing KPIs, to engage with your community, to focus on email collection, to be able to accurately understand how that collection is going, and to talk with your employees about that on a regular basis. Keep in mind that we cannot legally text offers without a double opt-in, so that's important. Oftentimes there are, there's an allure out there that text notifications are going to, take over all of our marketing efforts and are really going to be the silver bullet. But unless you get a double opt-in from your customer, legally texting offers is not advisable. You want to explore social media platforms that are out there. Your surveys are going to provide valuable feedback. They're going to allow you to talk to your employees about what works and what doesn't work. It's important to use surveys to improve that customer experience, and ultimately to find a reliable marketing partner so you can focus on running your shops. And that's exactly what Throttle does. We are proud to say that our customers stay on our program for 5+ years on average. We've had customers on for 10+ years, and that's really just a testament to the thought out approach to the evolution of adding additional touch points. We're constantly looking at what to add. We're constantly listening to what makes sense from a on the ground, in the trenches standpoint. And we're excited to be working on additional communication touch points and additional reporting and so on this year, which would get folded right into the Throttle Bundle program, which includes everything that we looked at there on the customer journey. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach us here at our main office, 800-966-1661. You can also reach out to sales@throttleitup.com. You can visit us online. You can also book a demo. So you can use your phone to capture that QR code there, or just send a request to sales@throttleitup.com. We're more than happy to reach out and walk you through the program and help you understand all that we can provide. And again, tied to RO Writer, we have a long-standing partnership with RO Writer, and we are very proud of that. Looking forward to meeting you. Petra, thanks so much for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeff, for the great presentation. There's a lot of actionable takeaways and some great tips I think that any repair shop can adopt. So thank you again for joining today's webinar, and look forward to seeing everyone at the next webinar. Just trying to figure out where to pause the recording. There we go. Okay.
No worries.